Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
Every 10 or 15 years, a film is produced that is so overwhelming, so forceful in its impact, that it becomes deeply embedded in the mind.
Right on the set, goddammit. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Dodson.
Yum, yum. You're listening to Still Toking with.
What's up, everybody? It's comedian Sherwin Array, and you're listening to Still Toking with on the Dorkening Podcast Network.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. You're watching Still Toking with, powered by the Dorkening Podcast Network. We have an awesome show for you. My name's Leo. I'm the monkey behind the keyboard here. And as always, Benjamin, how's it going, bud?
Fucking awesome. Fabulous. It's Wednesday.
Wednesday, and you are so excited for tonight's guest.
Dude, I am super excited for tonight's guest. Super excited.
Hell yeah.
One of the biggest things I want to know is how the Gulf of Mexico smells like cow shit. Just curious to that fact. But we'll find out, I'm sure.
Like on the water?
Yeah. It's all in the book. But we'll get into that too with this amazing guest.
Yeah.
But yeah. From what I understand, the Gulf of Mexico smells like cow shit.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Good evening.
What the fuck?
I was
caught off guard.
No, not at all. Well, I was having technical difficulties while the intro was playing, so I finally got it back to where it belongs.
No.
But welcome. Let's get into it. Let's welcome Tim McBride.
Hello,
Tim.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here, man.
Hello.
Well, welcome, brother.
Yeah, and just recap because I'm hitting all the wrong buttons tonight. So just we're talking with Tim McBride, and for the people listening on Dead Dork Radio, because I just pushed this live on Dead Dork Radio just now, like right this second.
Bravo.
Nice.
I didn't forget.
You're the man, Leo.
Right?
How did these pictures get all switched around here? I'm not.
I used to be over here.
Yeah, I was down.
I bought.
No,
There we go.
I tried to.
I feel better now.
What the fuck?
Hey, don't do that. You just fucked with my head.
Listen, I haven't finished smoking this yet. You can't do that, Leo.
Yeah, they're gonna start calling me fucking Jeff now or some shit.
Right? Right? I'm gonna have to grow me one of those pull toys. Right?
Yeah, it got to be about 18 or 19 inches or so long. You know when I started growing this damn thing was when I started writing my book, and I thought, you know what, I told my kids, I'm not gonna shave the damn beard off until I get my book published. And it got about that far, and I got published. So I just said, fuck it. It just became part of me, man. But I got to keep trimming it every now and then. Otherwise, it starts getting tangled in my shit, and I start tripping and,
Right.
Nobody wants
with
that
motherfucker.
Nobody wants that shit.
Right?
Yeah, you could go fishing for gators with that motherfucker.
Yeah.
See, I was
Been
thinking
there.
I was
Been
thinking
there.
the other I was thinking the other direction. It's like anal beads.
Oh yeah, Benoit.
Benoit.
Yeah, yeah, dude. No, I used to have
What are
little.
you gonna do? Weave marbles into it?
Yeah, exactly. Like little beads. You just put. I used to have like 6 or 8 of them on there, and I mean, and yeah, dude. I mean, you hit it right on the head, Ben.
So anyway, let's bring this back on track a little bit because
you said something about cow shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I purchased the book, so I do have the book. And for all you watching or listening on the radio side of things or later on the podcast, it's in the show notes, and he's got a copy right there in his hands. Saltwater Cowboy: Rise and Fall of the Marijuana Empire. And we'll get into part of his story tonight because you were in the industry for 40 years plus.
Well, no, there was 3 generations of us for 40 years. Gotcha. I managed to be the third out of the third generation, and we had a good run for about 10 years.
About 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what we brought to the table was a step above what the second generation had taught us, which was the guys and the gals that I grew up with, was their fathers and the uncles and older cousins and then their grandpas and such, kind of handed this on down, from family to family, generation to generation, because the older they got, the tougher it was for them to do the work. So who do they have to do the work? The fucking kids. Right.
So, but let's start more at the beginning.
Okay.
Where you jumped in your Mustang and headed for Florida.
Chuckaluski, it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
No. What in particular? You want to know, like, the whole from the?
Just give the audience, because I've seen your interviews. So
right.
I've kind of gotten the gist. I'm pretty sure. I think Jeff might have watched one. Leo did not do his research as usual. So.
What? Leo's got all the technical shit to handle, man. He gets a pass on that, but
so basically, give us.
I can start right from the day I got back from working in California. I'd worked for Sammy Davis for 2 years, and that's another story that we can get into another time. That's in the book as well, and how I managed to wind up, doing that. But at that time, I had come back that summer, and I wasn't home back to Wisconsin. That is. I was born in North Carolina, an Army brat at the 82nd Airborne Army brat at Fort Bragg. My father had gone through that and then got a job later on in the Midwest, a sales job, which landed us right in Lake Geneva, a little town called Delavan right next door. And had been living there on the lake. And, fast forward, did my time in Hollywood, came home, and my next door neighbor, my dearest friend at the time, his sister was married to a guy from Florida, from the Everglades, actually, from Chuckaluski. He was, part of the family. He was raised down there, so that was home for him. And she had come home. They were coming home for the summers and back and forth and things like that for vacation. And he got offered a job on one of the stone crabbing vessels down there. And he didn't hesitate. He called me and said, "Dude, I'm leaving tomorrow." I said, "I got a job, very cool job working on the back of this stone crab boat. Don't know shit about it, but I'm going. You in?" And I said, "Fuck yeah, count me in, man." And I just happened to throw all my shit back in my Cobra, because, right there by the door. And that next morning I was, on my ass, was on my way to, the very dead end of Highway 29, which is, as you pass through Everglades, which is the first little island. Then the causeway that takes you out to Chuckaluski, which is 29 acres of just pure paradise, right in the heart of the Everglades, and right at the very northwest corner of the Everglades National Park. And that's where that's how I just wound up there, just on a whim, because I was always that kind of guy,
Right.
Time
And
to go.
Yeah. And if the opportunity presented itself, the same way it did for my opportunity to work with Sammy Davis Jr. for 2 years, and I could get in a couple hours into that, but that just happened on a whim. As a matter of fact, my cousin drove his tour bus for, my cousin Joey in Ohio, and his partner Huggan drove his 40-foot Greyhound tour bus. And primarily it was driven for his Sammy's financial advisor, because he had this something to do with the dealing with the air pressure when he flew in his ear. He couldn't fly to where he had to go, so he had to take this tour bus all over the fucking country. And when he wasn't busy and driving and that kind of shit, he was home in Ohio just kicking back, watching the tube and shit. And I just happened to be in there. He said, "Hey, Timmy, why don't you come out to LA for a couple weeks and hang out?" Like, fuck yeah. So I went out there, managed to meet them, and long story short, wound up working, doing shit for Sammy Davis himself and a few other big names, Hollywood actors and stars at that time. But the minute I got back, I was offered that opportunity again, and dude, I didn't give it a second thought. I was off to the races. And when we got down to Everglades, he had that job secured for that end of that season on that crab vessel. And there was already a guy on there from Michigan who was the second mate. There's only 3 guys on the boat. There's a captain, a first mate, second mate. There's 2 pullers on the back pulling stone crab traps. And I had taken a job helping his sister build his brother-in-law and his sister's new home that they were building on the island. So I had some kind of, I had backup in a way.
Right.
And, when the house got finished, I was kind of dicking around doing my thing. And the captain of the boat that Mark was working on really wasn't digging this guy from Michigan, because he didn't know who he was, where he was from, not like us, like Mark and myself. And in the book, I call him Clark because I didn't have at that time permission to use his name, although I didn't need it. I felt that because of our friendship, I was, respectful enough to not use his name, having not asked him, could I? Right. So they didn't really know this guy from Michigan. They knew where we were from. They were, Nancy's brother, for Christ's sake, who was the fish house manager's wife, who had lived there all his life. And they knew me because I was part of their family, as it were, because living right next door. So there was no ifs, ands, or buts about where we came from. Were we trying to infiltrate? Were we cops? This kind of shit, which is, one of the things that, for all those years is something that they looked out very carefully for. New people in town, they're always like, nobody really wants to know them, that kind of thing. It's terrible. It's terrible to say with regards to, those types of people. But when it came to tourism and the guides and the people that interacted with the public and like that, they didn't have that attitude because most of those guys weren't involved anyways. But that being said, the captain didn't want this guy on the boat. So it only took him about a week to work his ass so fucking hard that he quit. I mean, yeah, because stone crabbing is a bitch, man. It ain't a fucking. It'll make a man out of you in a slap hurry, dude. Right. We're talking about, by the time I got on the boat, I got on the crew. And we'll get into this later on if we got some time. But at that time, we had 7,000 traps, and each trap weighed about 60 pounds a piece. 50 to 60 pounds because they're not that big. They're only about 28 inches in width by maybe 19, 20 inches or so in depth, but they stand probably 21 inches tall, and they have a bit of a flap on top with, that you can use to open it up, and a round piece of PVC we call a funnel that they climb into, and they fall right into the trap. But at the bottom of the trap, there's about 5.5 inches of concrete in the bottom of this thing. So when your buddy takes his buoy and pulls his trap in, yours is already clean and baited and ready to go. So by the time he pulls his in, you're dropping yours. So it's a song and dance between these rows of traps, whereby he picks one up, I drop one. I drop one, he picks one up. So there's always one in place of where we picked one up. Right. And those lines, because there are so many of them, 700 of them, they run for 18 miles. These lines can run 18 miles one direction. Then we'll stop and have lunch, and then we'll skip over maybe 50, 70 yards or so, and we'll pull 350 more, the other half, back the other direction, so we're not twice as far away from where we started. Right. And having 7,000 of these, we're pulling 700 a day. We pull 700 here, and then we go to another spot, 700, and we make our rounds so these other traps have a chance to soak to get their catch on them. So just by their very nature, these boats are designed to haul traps. They're perfectly designed for hauling bales of pot too, right. But so my getting on this boat came rather tongue-in-cheekishly, if you rather. The captain and Mark knew that I would be okay with hauling pot, whatever.
Right.
So I was imparted the scenario by which this whole thing takes place. You get on about 3 in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning, and you haul ass offshore to whatever line of traps you may be going to at the Gulf at that time. And when you get there, you begin to pull the first buoy. It's got a stick stuck in it. So, it's the end buoy. The low ran at that time we were using low ran. They didn't have the GPSs, and they would put us right on that buoy. And the minute it's light enough out to sea, we start grabbing these goddamn things and we're slinging. They go through a block and tackle. It's similar to what you see on like on Deadliest Catch, if you're familiar with how that works.
Right. Yep.
Now they're using 5/8 inch rope. We're using 3/8 inch nylon line because ours are only 50 pounds. Theirs are over 1,000 when they're full. And they have, anywhere from 100 to 200 to 300 fathoms, which is 12 feet. Of rope. A fathom is 12 feet of rope on these damn things, and we're only like the deepest we're at is 80 feet. So we can sling through these things relatively quickly. But the premise is the same. Only they have 2 bags floating with a line between them that they throw their grapple and hook to try to catch that line in between. Our scenario works rather similarly. We have a catch pole that we typically all make our own. We catch them by the buoy, underneath the buoy. We pull it through a block and tackle and around that thing that's spinning. You always see that big giant wheel spinning that they hang the rope into, and it starts to pull the trap.
Yep.
Well, that thing is designed like 2 pie pans put together like this, and what it does is it cinches the rope in between it, and as it turns, it grabs it, but it doesn't keep continual rolling around it because it has what's called a knife sticking out the bottom of it that kicks the rope back out. Ours coil at our feet. Theirs has to go into a coiler because they got shit fucking forever of this rope, right? But but that's how the industry in which we worked. I mean, you had to work that in order to be able to do what the boat was doing in the evening. Now, after this scenario had been imparted to me, I knew that, when we got out there, the sun's just coming up and I get out there, start working. Well, I wake up. The first day I get out of the boat, I woke up and the sun's out. And I lean over and I look at Captain Billy, and he's got a big ass shitting grin on his face. And he goes, "Hey, Timmy," he goes, "you know what? We're not going to pull traps today." He goes, we're gonna run offshore this afternoon and unload a pot boat from Colombia." And I said, "Cool, let's go, man." So we just kind of, fucked around all day, and and the typical scenario by which this whole thing takes place is that the boat that's coming to get loaded, our boat, let's say now, we had a particular call sign. The captain knew that he needed to shout out to this boat so they would know that, and if we got a return from it, they would know that the boat coming to them was the one that's supposed to be coming to them. So they're not all, start throwing this shit or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But we hung out there all day long, just fucking around. And about 3 to 4 hours before sunset, Captain Billy, he gets on there and he calls sign. They say, "Come on." So here we come. And pull up to this thing. My first day ever working on that boat, never pulled a single trap, but I hauled 15 tons of fucking Colombian weed back to shore on this boat. And we get it to shore, and just outside the 10,000 Islands, right out here where we live. Now, Chokoloskee Island is one of the interior islands. It's one of the bigger ones inside. But all the other 10,000, the labyrinth of islands that Mother Nature saw fit just to put perfectly in our backyard, we had to make our way through those to get to, Chokoloskee. So our boat loaded in 15 tons. That was a small load. I had since, and throughout my career, had never saw a load that small before. And we literally went out fishing. The smaller boats took it from us, did what they needed to do to it. We went offshore, cleaned off, came home. And the very next day we did the exact same thing. He says, "Guess what? We're not hauling traps again today." He says, this time it's 22 tons. This was 2 nights in a row, right? And I'm thinking, wow, man, that's like, but I was getting rookie pay at that time. I was, $5,000. I was thinking, damn, man, that's $5,000. But he didn't get it right away. And there's a reason why we don't get it right away. But, he said, "You just made $10,000, like that." But now that the captain understood that he had a crew that was willing to do the work and that could do the work, from that point on, it was game on, man. I mean, we were working sometimes 3, sometimes 4 nights a week, and the jobs went from 22 tons to 25 tons to 30 to 40 tons, and not just on our boat. A lot of, it took 2 or 3 of the boats like ours to pull these loads and bring them in. And that's why our shore crew had to be as such, where at any one time, when you pull up to when you pull up to the edge of the islands and you kill that engine on that big giant turbo diesel, and you got all these 30, 40 other little boats wading off into the bushes with very shallow drafting, what we called T-crafts at the time. They were a very wide, shallow drafting boat that we could hang twin 235 Evinrudes on them, and they would have vertical and horizontal trim. So if the prop would go through the water, that fucking boat could go through the water with 30, 40 bales on it. Right. And we knew the passes and the deeper water better than anybody out there, because hell, that was where we played, dude. That was our backyard, and you can almost guarantee that once we had it on those little boats and it got into those islands, it belonged to us. And the scenario by which that happens, once they take it from us and we go offshore and and start to clean up and what have you, they will literally take it into Chokoloskee Island and put it into 1 or 2 of our buddies' houses that we've literally taken the furniture out of, and start at the back and load it from the back room to the bedroom, the bathrooms, the master rooms, the dining room, the living room, the whole fucking house is ceiling to floor. And if there's still more coming, perhaps we move next door to Jimmy's house and we start doing the same thing. We start loading his house. And a lot of the vehicles that they use now, this is the shore crew now that takes over. The offshore crew is already done. We've done our thing. All the shit is off our boat. It's off the little boats, and everybody goes and scatters and cleans and hides these boats, because you can't just have one little town of villagers of an island of 129 acres with the entire town of less than 500 people with 50 of these small drafting boats. I mean, hello, like this. So they gotta go hide them, right, and get them out of sight and shit, because it's just a little much. But that being said, a lot of the guys who were the drivers, and the drivers never own the vehicles that are being used to haul this stuff to Miami, and the owners of the boats are never the ones that own the boats, and there's a reason for that as well. But once the night job is over, now it's our job to get to the mothership, get back to shore, get it off onto the little boats that can go, the 15, 20, 30 little boats that can go through the shallows and unload at the dock and throw it into the house. Now, if they're not putting it into the house, they're stuffing it into somebody's car, van, truck, or whatever the case may be, and they drive it home and park it in their driveway and just leave it there, and then they have a 2-meter radio. We must have had 150 of these damn things. They had a 5-digit combination on top of them where, everybody could talk, because, when you're doing something like this, communication is absolutely key to everything that you do. And so everybody takes a radio, and, the next day, and then everybody goes to bed or to sleep if there's time still. And us, we just go offshore, we rinse down and wash down, and we sit next to another line of traps that we're going to go ahead and just pull some of the next day, so we can come in with something, because it's not untypical for a boat to spend the night, or with whatever mechanical troubles or whatever the case may be. But so it was never any suspicion with that regard.
Right.
But the next day is when the shore crew takes over, and that's when the stuff is taken to Miami during broad daylight. And the crazy thing about it is there's only one way to get to Miami from where we are. There's one road in Everglades, that's Highway 29. There's only one goddamn road to Miami, and that's US 41. I mean, it's not like we had our choice of, go here, go there, right, or whatever, I mean, it was, and it's a funny story about, having been interviewed, back when I got busted about that, and I asked these 2 stupid Treasury agents if they understood the geography of Everglades City. Well, yeah. And I said, okay, well, how many roads in there and out of there are there? Well, there's one. Yeah, there's one. I said, well, how many are there directly from there to Miami? Well, there's one. fucking right, there's one. And I didn't get all those millions of pounds of shit to Miami on the backs of pelicans and fucking porpoises. I told him. It went right down that one fucking road, man. 9 times out of 10, my people are waving at you while we're doing it. I mean, masters of hide in plain sight, because who would suspect that you're taking out, in 2 nights' time, you're doing 44,000, you're doing 74,000 pounds of shit you got to get off that island, and how the fuck are you going to get it off there? Well, right down that one fucking road that there is going in there.
That's a little 2-lane road too.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know what? And it's ridiculous to think that, that they didn't have a clue. I mean, they had no fucking clue whatsoever, but when it comes to seeing it come in as many different ways that I have seen it come, all across the Caribbean, I've seen it come out of, Jamaica, all through Central America, and Mexico and Belize, Honduras, and even before Belize became Belize, and when it was British Honduras, and Panama, and even Colombia, the northern coast of Colombia, Barranquilla City. Jamaica was, I think, by far the best time ever. I always loved going to Jamaica for some whatever reason. It was so more relaxed there because, people have this weird misconception about it being so easy to go to Colombia and get a load of weed and just get out of there. Well, you got to put up with almost the same shit down there that you have to put up with here. The only difference down there is that, most of them guys can be bought, and it doesn't matter. But sometimes they don't allow you to bring the boat right up to shore. And a lot of times it may take, if you've got a 60, 70, 80,000 pound, 40 ton, or say 50 ton load, a lot of times it has to get loaded little bits by bits every night, from smaller boats, because they won't allow that boat to come to shore unless they pay more money. And that's just how it's done there. Or they take the shit, they could just take it whenever they wanted to. So it was a different scenario, but it was just as frustrating, to do it that way. But segueing back to having seen it, thinking I had seen it, every different way it was possible the whole fucking pot, because I've seen it come on all different kinds of boats. I've seen it in every different kind of packaging there is, because at one time we were taking so much shit out of Colombia. It was ridiculous. They were running out of bag burlap type of sacks to put it into. I had seen this shit ultimately come in, and I didn't know that. None of us knew that Purina made monkey chow at that time, or even elephant chow and stupid shit like that for zoos.
Wow.
Yeah. So they went out of the sugar bags, the coke, the coffee burlap. They were into the fucking nylon bags that the Purina shit came in, because you're buying thousands of these things at a time in order to stuff your bales into, and they had they had to be built the size that they would fit into these bags, But I remember one time in particular, and we'll get back to the smell of cow shit on the water, and how that came about right there. I had been working for years, and a typical scenario, and they're always the same. It's it would be kind of boring if some of these crazy assholes weren't working this industry at that time, and a lot of them were doing it. It would have been just a whole, how many times can you hear about hauling a load of pot kind of shit? But some of these fucking crazy fuckers, man. These guys were, as it turned out, we're headed out there. We're doing a typical scenario whereby the captain, does his thing, and about 2 hours, 4 hours or so, give or take how far they could come in. It can only territorial waters is only 30 miles, and a lot of the boats won't like to come in to U.S. waters. They want to stay out that far, because there's a lot of boat traffic out there on the radar when it comes to those sort of things. The shrimpers are out there, and they can hide amongst all those little dots on those little blips on the radar. And you come any closer to that, to shore, and there should be nothing there. because that's where all the stone crab traps are. The shrimpers we had an agreement that the shrimpers stayed 30 miles out, don't come any closer. The stone crabbers could have 30 miles within, that way that they're not dropping their nets and scooping up a half a fucking line of traps that cost, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right.
So after the war ensued, there came a time of peace when everybody went, okay, 30-mile limit. So at that 30-mile limit, this boats, we call the boat, and we typically stay off from in the distance to at a distance that's called the horizon, which is about how far you can see with the naked eye on the water. Depending on how high the vessel sat above the water line would depend on how many miles you can see the vessel. And then 10 to 11 miles or so is typically the range that we sat. And we did that because, when you're when you sit off the horizon, you have very plausible deniability about, what the fuck are you talking about? What boat? That kind of thing. So we call them and, we get the call back and we head that direction and we get about a half mile and a half maybe or so from this boat, and Captain Billy hands me a set of binoculars and he goes, here to me, he says, check this shit out, man. He goes, you're not going to believe what you're about to see. And I went, okay. So I put the binoculars up there and I'm watching, and I swear to fuck, we get about, half a mile or better from this damn boat, and the gates, and what it was a cattle vessel. I bet it had 175 head of cattle on this damn thing. And the guy had been hired because of he would buy cattle in South America and sell them in New Orleans. Well, he had gotten approached and said, hey, look, why don't we just, shove, 20 tons of shit down below here and then just throw your cows on the boat and just let you go do your thing. And he opted for that, no, fuck yeah. I mean, who wouldn't at that time? There were a lot of pot haulers that were picked up that way, the motherships like that. So we get ready to pull up to this damn thing. We see all these goddamn cows on the deck, and all of a sudden the back end opens up on this boat, and these guys are with cattle prods, and they're running these fucking things off the back of this boat. And I'm thinking, holy shit, we're looking at what in the fuck is going on, man? I see all these cows are like, and cows don't fucking swim all that great, man, if they even swim at all, right? And it was like a huge bovine waterfall. These things just kept splashing one right after the other into the water. And I'm looking at Billy going, what the fuck, man? I mean, it was like, what a shocker, right?
Yeah.
And we had to get up. We had to get up next to this thing, and they're clunking, their hose are banging, and their horns are banging on the side of the boat, and we're trying to get up next to this fucking thing, and finally get up close enough to throw a line up to the fucking guy up, up on the rail, and there's this older dude standing there with a ball cap on backwards, and he's peeling a fucking orange, and we're yelling up, we're going, what in the fuck are you doing like this? And he goes, we can't get all this shit out from down below with all these fucking cows in the way. So off they went. The guy was obviously making far more money, hauling the load of weed than he was these fucking cattle, right? So he had no problem. And, and it just, we're thinking, oh, Jesus, no, there's no fucking way, but it had happened, and there was nothing we could do but get the fucking load and get gone, that kind of thing. So we hurried up, we got our load, we get this shit, we took off, and black smoke come out of the back of the boat, just wafted over this thing like a black veil, and a black veil of death. And we just got the fuck out of there. And so we get back to the, and unload, and then, the next day, as the shit scored to Miami, I managed to get up a little bit earlier, about 10 or so like that. They're still loading cars, and I walk over there and, to see how the load was going. And we happened to be talking about, and we mentioned the fact, these crazy motherfuckers, you won't believe it. They threw these fucking cows in the water. So we're telling these guys on the shore crew, the bail handler, was this crazy ass story, right? And so we had done about maybe 3-4 different jobs. In the meantime, maybe 3 weeks or better go by, and then here comes this same fucking boat again, and we're thinking, Jesus, what the fuck's going on? So, and the same scenario, only this time he has pigs, he's got goats, he's got sheep, he's got fucking chickens. And for somehow, and I didn't know until later on, he had these little fucking spider monkeys. He must have had like 20 or 30 of these little bastards running around on this boat, just free ranging. And it turns out that when the boat can get loaded at the dock, in Colombia, if it can manage to get up that close to it, the little monkeys come down out of the trees. They start eating the goddamn seeds out of the fucking shake and shit and the bales off the boat. And they wind up passing out amongst the bales. Next thing you know, when the boat's ready to haul ass and leave, they're 60 miles offshore. When these fuckers wake up, there's nowhere for them to go. They're stuck on this boat. So, same scenario. I'm watching, opens the fucking gates, off go the cows. And just like that, I think them fucking monkeys knew exactly what was going on, because there wasn't a spot on that light mask or on any one of them antennas that didn't have a fucking monkey on it. Because, it was like they knew these fuckers were going off the boat. But the cows and the pigs and the chickens and all that, they were cool. It was just too many cows, right? So, one more time we pull up there, we yelled up at the guy, and I said, and we said, you know what, you just can't fucking do this anymore. Don't come back. We don't want to see your ass here again for two fucking reasons, two really main reasons. First of all, the poor fucking cows, for Christ's sake, and second of all, it's very much one thing to be, strolling down the beach, picking up shells and shit and tripping over a dead fish. But it's very much another to be strolling down the beach and picking up shells and trip and fall over a dead fucking cow. Because They said they started washing up on Naples Beach and then Fort Myers Beach. I said, nah, not anymore, because somebody's going to wonder where the fuck the cows came from, right? So that was the end of that one. So we get back and we tell these guys, the same fucking guys came back, man. And they're like, well, aren't you just a bunch of fucking cowboys, man? And that's how the saltwater cowboys, and that's how the original three guys on the boat got called that, So, but eventually it caught on in town, and over the years it caught on, and it just, it's just a term, for a pot hauler,
Right.
And that's how that happened.
Like, I mean, there's so many stories that you can tell.
Right.
We're at a good stop and break for a commercial.
Yeah.
Sure. So we're gonna take a quick commercial break, but everybody watching, listening, I know we got a ton of people out there. You can find everything you need to know about this awesome guest. Where, Leo?
In the show notes, up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And
I know there's a link for the book, which you got to buy the book, because there's no fucking way we're going to sit here for 10 hours to talk to him tonight.
Dude, I was contracted for 80,000 words. I wrote 86,000. I edited out 200,000. To the version you read now, so.
Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, and I'll let you think about this. You probably just answered it, but Jeremy is asking, Tim, what's been the scariest moment of your life, and why you think of that? I am going to play the ads. So here we go.
Good.
Daredevil and the Punisher. Spring has finally arrived, and that means summer cannot be far behind. And you know what I'm doing at the end of the summer? I'm going down to Maryland for the Pop and Horror Con, August 27th and 28th. I hope to see you there. It's going to be a great time.
Hey guys, this is Tony Moran. I played the original Michael Myers from John Carpenter's movie Halloween. I'm doing this great convention called the Maryland Pop and Horror Convention. Anyways, can't wait to see you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey kids, George Lowe here, voice of TV's beloved Space Ghost. And you know what would be horrible and horrific and really scary? To miss Maryland Pop and Horror Con.
Wow. So Leo's still off camera, and we lost Jeff. I saw somebody disappear during that. And I thought it was you. I was like, oh shit, we lost him again.
No, I've been hanging, man.
It was fucking Jeff. So hey, fuck it, man. I guess we talk on the phone all the time. Jeff's probably sitting in the back room going, Leo, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, scratching his head, wondering what the fuck.
Right. He must have got a phone call. But yeah,
you know what? There we go. There's one of us. Hey, Jeff.
There he is. He's back.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Wow.
We're switched again, but hey, okay, I'm good with that.
The second half of the show, we can do that.
I just had a shift in consciousness as well, so it doesn't make much difference. So.
Right. Well, the gummy was starting to kick in too, and I was like, "Oh fuck!"
Oh, nice. Never could manage the edible, man. Always, my tolerance is such that I had to eat so much of it gives me a stomach ache.
Right.
Oh yeah. See, I'm not. Yeah. I don't have to eat that much.
But Leo, what's up, bro?
Oh no, I messaged Ben. Quick bio break.
Bio break.
That's what we say at work.
Oh.
Bio break.
Have you used the little boys' room?
Yes.
Right. So the question that your viewer posed was what the scariest time that I had ever.
What's an event? What's one of the scariest moments that you've had?
Well, to be quite truthfully with you, I have been to who I call in my book the boss's mansion in Colombia a number of times, and when I first met him, I had no fear whatsoever. It was just like every day, ordinary, like I was a kid and I'd done this before. I met people in Jamaica. I met people in Central America and in Jamaica. I had done $100 million marijuana deals in downtown Miami on a street corner in front of a Cuban cafe, dunking Cuban bread into a Cuban coffee with a handshake, and this misguided conception about these dimly lit back rooms that are smoky filled and the guns on the tables and the guys in the background that you can barely see. There's nothing could be further from the fucking truth, man. I mean, there's a lot of Hollywood into that shit, and trust me, because I've done this. I can't tell you how many times I've made deals like this, millions of pounds worth of deals like this shit. But what scared me the most, and I was never scared for my life until the United States government showed up at my house and put pistols at the back of my head. That was the time that I was ever afraid the most throughout my entire career of pot hauling. Never once did I fear the law about getting caught and what would have happened to me with that regard, because at those times when I was growing up, the sentences were such where, the guys were getting popped on a van load of shit, or they get, a boatload of shit or whatever, wherever they're from, they get 10, 12, 14 months, slap on the wrist, and then they do maybe 8 or 9 of that and go home, and we keep the electric on for them and keep the family fed and the bills paid, and then just put them right back to work again. I mean, it was just like that. Right. But when it came time, the most frightening aspect of whatever it was that I had done was that night that all those federal agents came into my house and stuck a gun at my face. That was my you could have cut a cigar with my fucking sphincter that night. But that's the honest truth. That's as frightened as I had ever gotten. And there were times when there's a fine line between the ultimate excitement and the ultimate exciting experience and being scared to death. Right. Or scared for your life. It's a really fine line there, and a lot of times we worked that line really, really finely, because there were times when we went like this. I mean, that was close, dude. I mean, I had I had my share of almost getting there, but never in the time that I had been involved in all the years that I've been involved in this, and I grew up in the industry, did I ever worry about getting caught, because first of all, we're kids, and we're growing up with these guys, and we're working and we're learning. And if they're not afraid, well, fuck, why should we be afraid? You know, it was that kind of mentality. And there's just so much to tell about, you know, the goings on or the inner workings of the whole thing and the hierarchy and all of that. What piques your curiosity the most? What would you be more interested in hearing? Because, like, dude, like, you know, Ben, you know, I could sit here for another 4 or 5 hours and just
I know. I watched an interview that you did recently, and you spoke about how you went into a car dealership.
Right.
And bought, I believe it was a Vet, and then realized they had some ragtop Jeeps.
Right.
They were affordable. So tell our viewers and listeners that quick, because it's a quick little story about what you guys did and all that. But I think it's fucking hilarious.
Right. Well, this is one of those ways in which we learned how to spend money and not have anything to show for it. And when you're making, like I was as a kid, you know, I'm just turned 21. I'm averaging over $150,000 in cash a week, you know, and so are all my buddies. You know, everybody else is making cash too. So, you know, even today, you're required when you spend more than $10,000, you're required to fill out what's called a cash transaction receipt, a CTR. And they then in turn claim that to the IR, you know, the Internal Revenue Service, and blah blah blah, that bullshit. But even during the day that I was running, you know, there were ways to circumvent that. You know, I mean, we knew too many people in the business, and club owners and boat owners and boat builders and boat sellers that knew us well enough to know that, you know, we could come in and just pay them the cash in increments. You know, we're like that. We're good for it. You know, fuck. But they would. Remind me what we were talking about. You know, there's just so much that
buying the Jeeps and what you did.
To tell. Yeah, well, yeah, because that reminded me of another time about buying a truck for a dude. But no, there was no real big grocery store in Everglades City. There was a small grocery that's sufficed for odds and ends and things like that, and quick necessities or a quick meal like that. But we go into town to the supermarkets, to the bigger chains and and I'm on my way into town to go grocery shop, and I pass a Chevy dealer and I see this badass Corvette, man. It's like got fat tires all the way around. It's got mag wheels. It's got the ground effects, just badass thing. And I just went, whoop, I pulled right in there. Come to find out, it was the owner of the dealership's son had just turned it in and bought something new. And I said, I want that car, like just like that. I said, that's mine right there. So I bought that car right there. But as I'm on the phone, and I'm driving a Cobra now, and I'm on the phone calling a couple of my, one of my buddies back in Everglades, and I'm saying, to bring one of the other guys up to drive my, my Cobra home. And while I'm on the phone, I'm looking out into the yard, and they got these ragtop Jeeps for sale, and they're like $87.95 a piece, brand new, and I'm thinking, holy fucking hell, what? And so I called, and when I answered the phone, I said, get Jimmy, Teddy, Willie, and Brandon and all those guys and Mikey, and get their asses up here. They got Jeeps for under 10 grand. Let's go have a blast, man. So it wasn't 45 minutes later, here comes a bunch of my buddies. There was like 7 of us, and we each bought a Jeep, and we take it out to this to the place that's a local hangout we call Bad Luck Prairie, where it's just wide open prairie, and then there's some some hammocks and things out there that with taller trees that you can find shade in, and we left our cars parked there at the dealership and grabbed all 7 of these Jeeps and hauled the fuck ass out to Bad Luck Prairie and had one mean ass fucking demolition derby with these things, man. It was just a riot for hours. We just crunched and crashed and and just rolled these things over. When I say roll it over, the girlfriend that I was with when I wrote about in the book, this dingbat blonde, she was one of the hottest bartenders in town, of course, but she sees the roll bar inside the Jeep, and she's thinking you can roll this thing, right? So she's screaming, roll it, roll it, roll it. She's hanging onto the window like this, and I just cranked that motherfucker. I rolled that thing about 3 times in the sand and the palmettos, and of course we were buckled, strapped in pretty good, and I'm spitting sand out. I got sand in my eyes and shit like that. So another guy came and hit me and knocked me back over on my wheels, and so we could take off again. But what wound up, shit, we were out there 3-4 hours, and we had one Jeep left that was capable of getting us back into town. We pulled in on the lot, and this thing's doing this. We just pulled it into a parking spot. We each got in our cars and took off. Because the dealership knew us. They knew who we were.
Look at Jeff's face. He's like, what?
These guys from Everglades, it's like take, and the adults were very adamant about, the spending of money, because if you got stupid, and you come pulling into your driveway of your trailer with a Ferrari or some stupid shit like that, you're gone. You just don't work anymore. Stupid shit like that doesn't. Right. But I had bought that Corvette only in that, stone crabbing in itself is a very lucrative job. It's it'll bust your ass and make a fucking man out of you, but you can stick to it, and the captain is willing to move the traps when they need to be moved, and a crew that'll work hard like that. It wouldn't have, it was nothing for me to bring home in those days. And we're talking about 79, 80, and 81 and 82 and like that, bringing home $500, $600, $700, $1,200 a week. That was a lot of money in those days.
Yeah.
So I could afford to live within a certain means. And that being said, in order to not stick out like a sore fucking thumb, like most of the adults didn't want you to, because like I said, if you did, you just didn't work anymore, and they needed kids because we were their asset. These old men aren't out there humping, 70-pound bales, 800 or 1,000 of them a couple times a night. Fuck no, that's why they had all these kids, right? But I could live according to those means, but where the difference was made when you talk about real money was when you open the door of the trailer and you walk inside, and you see the real plush Berber carpet and all the new leather furniture and all the high-tech appliances and high-tech stereo and televisions and all kind of shit all through the fucking house, just just decked out. That's where the difference was made. Just a really obscure trailer turned into this, Beverly Hillbillies mansion when you open the fucking door.
I'm sure one of you two must have other questions. So,
well,
because,
I do.
We've got about 15 minutes, maybe 20, and Leo's gonna shut it down so he can do his other show tonight.
Sure. Okay.
So what are your thoughts on how marijuana's turned from this evil thing to where we're on the cusp of it being legalized throughout the U.S.?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm thinking, as I smoke the weed that I just bought down the fucking street, first thing that comes to mind is I should be getting some kind of fucking credit or some shit, man, because you know what? I paid a $6 million fine, and I spent 4 years of my ass behind federal prison fences.
Right. Which is in the book.
But barring that, it's really ironic, to sit here and think that, I was given handed multiple life sentences for something that, somebody can drive down the street now and, and buy. Plus, coupled with the fact that some of my dearest friends today, if you go to my website, which is www.originalsaltwatercowboy.com, and take a look through the media, you'll see a lot of stuff that I've done in there recently. And if you Google my name, Tim McBride /Everglades, a myriad of stuff will come up. Pages of stuff will come up. All my latest podcasts and interviews, and a documentary that I had done with Viceland that included who was at the time and pictured with me on the front page of the Naples Daily News the day I was arrested, Mr. John Deasy of the United States Customs Office. He and I are just the dearest friends today, man. And that's a story all to itself. A couple of CIA, a couple Secret Service individuals that came down to run interdiction. We're just the dearest friends, and they live right here near me, so we see each other all the time, which is kind of ironic. Plus having had a conversation and being offered a chance to come to the Department of Homeland Security's office here in town and meet the supervisor for South Florida Homeland Security. He called, we had a mutual friend. I won't go into that. He said he wanted to meet a legend, and I laughed at him. I said, what? He said, "You just come and talk to me." He says, "You can explain some shit to me, and I'll tell you some shit that'll blow your mind." So we had an interesting conversation too. So that was very cool. But people ask me about embellishment in the book, because when I talk about having worked 28 nights in a row, one of the chapters is, and of course, a town of just under 500 people, and half the town is involved in you, because you cannot continue to work the same people night after night after night after night. And ultimately, there were 5 crews that I ran throughout Southwest Florida, from Everglades to Pine Island, and there were not as many as 50 to 60 people on each crew, and I was keeping them busy night after night after night. This is the extent to which it all had come to at one point. But if you want to know this story intimately, and you want to hear it told from somebody who was there, and all the adults and the older generations that I spoke with while I was writing this agreed that this story should be told by somebody who was there, somebody who had handled all these millions of pounds, and without any embellishment, because to have embellished upon what was written, 2 things would have happened. One would have made it sound like so ridiculous that it would have been laughable, and the other would have put it just beyond the realm of human possibility, and that was the edge on which we were working, the edge of the realm of human possibility. And what I like people to understand too is that how this history began, how it was done by families. It was never nonviolent. I never saw a gun in my entire did I ever see one ever. There's a story in Colombia where I picked up one time on my way out the door, only because everybody else was grabbing them, but I never fired it, or I never fucked with it or anything like that. But because they were generational as well, the families that we were purchasing around the Caribbean from. So that's how this all, and they should know that there was a way that this could have been done that way, and never once did we ever fire a shot. And I asked the Homeland Security advisor that same day we were talking, how does it feel having taken this out of the hands of people for generations that never fired a shot at you, never a single fucking shot, to what's happening with the 30,000+ deaths in Mexico because of you let them have it, basically.
Right.
I could go on about that too, but the biggest takeaway that I want people to have when they read my book is to understand the nonviolent nature in which it can be done. And the simple fact that now that they have a choice, they can have a choice legally and try it legally. I want them to go into the notion of a very cool Rasta dude in his cut off jeans and big long dreads out in the field rolling a spliff in a dried up banana leaf, which I've done dozens of times. Or the picture of a cool little Colombian guy and his family in his white cotton hat and blouse and slacks out in the field just tending like that. Just that vibe, not that death and mayhem and destruction that's happening on our southern border. So pick up Saltwater Cowboy, Rise and Fall of Marijuana Empire, and understand how it was done by families.
Wow. Did you read it yet, Ben?
I started, yeah. That's how I found out about the cow shit. Yeah, I mean, even though I won't tell you where it is in the book, you're just gonna have to buy the book and read it. But I was like, the first thing I did is I sent Tim a message. I go, I really need to know about the Gulf smelling like cow shit.
Well, that's the first whiff I got of it when we were getting close to that boat. I'm like, smell of cow shit, So I figure, why not grab people by the, and nothing is more gratifying than, of course, obviously having a second edition being printed, but having your work turn out exactly how you intended it to. And that's to grab the reader by their ass and pull them to the front of their seat and keep them there to the last words read. And, a lot of the 118 reviews that I've gotten so far on Amazon say pretty much the very same thing. One guy kind of went off the rails because I think he was a cop or a correctional officer or some shit. But the very last sentence was, I wouldn't mind having a beer with the guy.
Right.
Which I thought was kind of cool.
All right, Jeff, what about you? You must have a question.
I'm just loving his stories.
Okay. I just figured I'd give you the opportunity.
No, I've been sitting there, I'm all gummied up, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you another short story if you'd like,
Fire it.
I'm not got any lack of those fuckers laying around, man. Oh, let's see. Where do I begin? Yeah, it had always been, we didn't pot haul all the time. We always took time to just go pull our traps and this and that. Let a couple of other boats work a few nights, and then we'd work a few nights because, like I said, you can't keep working the same crew over and over and over. I mean, there were freighters parked out there, literally like a parking lot. And at any one time, and I've been aboard freighters, because you just don't pull out there and expect the shit to come raining down on your boat. It just doesn't happen that way. A lot of times you're going to have to get up on the deck. You got to climb up these fucking rope ladders, get on the deck of these freighters, get into the bilge, and literally build a pyramid of bales to stand on so you could bucket brigade this shit to somebody up above that's throwing it out onto the deck. And when they got, when you think you got 800 pieces or some shit, and you're taking turns in the hole, because, I've seen boats with as much as 300 and 350,000 pounds on them that we would have to come out 2 and 3 nights in a row to unload. And the shit having sit in the hole for as long as it does begins to have the same effect that a mulch pile has when it gets to sit. It starts to heat up a little bit, starts to self-combust. So that heat, coupled with the engines that are run 24/7, they never turn these fucking motors off on these freighters ever. And so we'd have to be taking turns and shit like this. So that's a little bit of a preamble to how it typically works. Well, we go off and we're pulling offshore 3 boats our size. We have a 51-foot marine management with a nearly a 19-foot beam on it. It's a very wide boat, so we can stack a lot of shit on this boat. 3 boats like this, and we were expected to get 60,000 pounds off of this freighter. So we're sitting out, I don't know how many miles offshore we're sitting, and we're diving and swimming around and fucking around and fishing and smoking weed, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here comes this goddamn single-engine Cessna off the water. He's about, I don't know, 10 feet off the fucking water, and you can't hear it coming until it's right on you. And it comes sailing right over the top of our fucking boat, and it just missed our antennas, and it went up and it banked and it turned. We knew right away then who it was. It was the guy who was running this job, Daryl. Now, Daryl had the means by which to buy an airplane, but didn't have a license, just the money to have a guy pay him to show him how to fly the fucking thing, right? So he flies this thing out there, and out comes this milk carton and a note. So one of his tools over there, we grab it, we read it, and it says, one of the boats that are there, one of the 3 boats needs to go off to this direction and unload this boat, let the other 2 continue on. And so the other 2 boats flipped a coin because we were staying with the original. So I don't remember who left, but they left and left us 2 boats. Well, skipping ahead, we wait for the right time of that evening to say the call sign, and we get the okay, and we approach this boat. We pull up, and this goddamn thing, I mean, it was 400 feet if it was a foot long, this fucking thing was. And the deck, the weather deck, was 16 feet at least above our deck. Whoa. Which meant if they were throwing the shit off of there, it had to fall 16 feet before it hit our fucking boat. So, and there was no way to tie off. So the captain had to keep the boats, against the side of this fucking freighter. And as it turned out, we didn't have to get on board, because I bet you there were, I don't know, 70 or 80 of these black fellas on there that were in a single file. They would go down one hatch opening, a doorway down, and come out another hatchway on the other side of the deck, with a bale on their shoulder each, single file, one right after the other, single file, down and up and down and up. There were 80 of these, at least 80 of these guys. And they were taking turns. They threw one on that boat, one on this boat, one on that boat, one on this boat, and then they were coming. And at that time, these kind of bales were, I mean, they were pretty packed. They had gotten their shit together by this time. The evolution of the bale had come to such where they were starting to tighten it up. And every time with the 3rd or 4th one hit the deck, you could hear the deck going like it was going to crack in half.
The birth of brickweed.
We're thinking, oh my God, they keep throwing these goddamn things. They're going to fucking bust our boat in half, right? So there were so many of these guys coming. I mean, they were just throwing this shit. And the bales were fairly uniformed. I mean, they weren't odd shaped and shit like that, like I had seen growing up in the industry. I had seen so many different ways and shapes and sizes and shit you can't imagine. And but here they come, and by our inability to keep up with the as many that were dropping, they wound up hitting one another and landing on one another, and that solved the deck breaking problem. So we could kind of, start snatching from the edge and throwing them. And we had them up on the bow of the boat, up to the windows. We had them around the edge of the wheelhouse up to the windows. We had them sitting on top of the deck of the wheelhouse, just high enough so the radar could turn. And that was straight back to the stern of the boat. And we're talking about from the deck to the top of the wheelhouse was probably about 11 feet. And we were just stacking these things. And we figured 60,000 pounds, maybe 450 of them or so, something like that would be a load. So the captain, he's kind of rough counting, he's in the wheelhouse because we're doing the work, and he's keeping the boat up there next to us, next to the freighter, and he's counting. And he said, okay, well, that should be about enough. So I yell up to this fucking guy. He's leaning up there against the edge, and he's looking down at me. And I go, how many more? And he looks over at me in his half-assed fucking English. He's yelling, 50 more. So I said, okay, 50 more. I tell him, Billy, 50 more of these fucking things. And he's peeling an orange. This guy's, he's another one peeling an orange, the captain. And so we're counting between the two boats, 50, 60, like, so I said, fucking this shit. So we both, captain and I, Billy and I both yelled up at the same time, how many more of these fuckers are there? And the guy goes, 50 more. Right away, I'm thinking this stupid motherfucker. He's not from around here. Obviously, he knows one number, and that's 50. Right? So they kept throwing these goddamn things, and a boat can only carry so much. I mean, and we can only put so much weight on this thing before the deck itself. And I don't know if you know what, any of your listeners know what. I'm sure they do know what scuppers are. On a boat, whereby the rainwater and the deck water can rinse and go off the back of the boat and into the water. Well, you sink a boat down to those scuppers and it starts taking on water. Yep. You're going the fuck under, man. Well, we're yelling at these guys, hey, fuck this shit. So we had to literally take a life preserver and a knife and cut it apart, take the innards out of it and start stuffing the scupper holes and jamming them full to keep us from taking on water. And at the same time we're doing this, the captain's firing up the boat, and we're leaving. We're getting away from these fuckers because they're going to sink us, right? we start pulling away from this fucking thing, and there was still some light out. I mean, it's still probably about another hour, daylight or so, and we're just chugging, man. At this, because of these types of loads, we're just, we're barely moving. But we have got riding alongside of us what we called and paid for was a chase boat, which was some type of very fast offshore deep V, go fast that'll do 70 miles an hour for your ass will hit the seat kind of a boat, with a handheld radar on it. So if we get, we're watching our radar and it looks like we're going to be boarded or somebody's coming, target's coming at us on our radar, we can get off on this thing and haul ass into the night and go. So we had a way out. So that being said, we're watching this thing. We're pulling away from this freighter. And as far as I could see with binoculars, these assholes kept throwing the shit overboard. They were throwing. I mean, for an hour, they were still throwing shit off of there. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I bet they threw 40, 50,000 more pounds of shit in the water. Wow. And it's not, and I come to find out was not in those days untypical for a scenario like that to happen. Even had we had a third boat, we wouldn't have gotten it all. I've seen boats, that are supposed to have only 40 tons on them or so, or 30 tons, and we'd take half, another boat would take half, and they'd still be throwing, some shit away, because if you could, it's a dollars and cents game, this whole thing is. And I'll add a little bit of a caveat to this with regards to violence, at that level. And the reason why we were families and families oriented was because there's no violence at that level, simply because of the dollars and cents of it all. If a guy can fly, like myself, can fly to Colombia and buy for $10 a pound Colombian weed, I can buy 30,000 pounds, 15 tons for $300,000. That's one night of drinking bar money for some cocaine cowboy fool over in Miami. I'll haul as much of his shifts as he wants, man, no problem. So I can take $300,000 in between 8 and 14 days, depending on any weather, for unforeseen weather patterns or what have you coming through the Gulf. I can turn 300 grand into 15 million in 8 days, minus my fee for a job that size, which is right around 7,200,000 or something like that, which I would pay my crew and everybody that worked, and then myself, which was what was left over. They have now made they had made $10 million. They made $9,700,000 plus their $300,000 back. So these fuckers aren't shooting at me, man. They can't give me money fast enough to go back. And one of the more easier, more simpler scenarios that I can take a little bit further, just do the math a little bit further and say that, okay, I made $9,700,000 for this guy on a $300,000 investment. Take that $300,000, that same $300,000, divide it back into $9,700,000, and it comes out to 32. That 32 represents the number of loads that I have to get back into him. I can lose 31 of those. All I need to do is get that 32nd load in. They've not lost money, even still at that point.
Right.
That's how stupid it is. I mean, and I never lost one for them. I never lost a load. I mean, we've seen a lot of shit, people get scared or guys, because we're not the only pothaulers working out there, man. And I'm not going to ever say that we were. There was the odd, guys here doing their thing and, whatever like that. Some got in, some didn't. But, hey, more fucking power to you, man. I'm only able to talk about a town that was able to integrate it into a way of life spanning 40 years and 3 generations and running the southern waters in the Caribbean with impunity, that sort of thing.
Right.
But in a non-violent fashion, and the numbers tell you the reason why. I mean, there's too much money to be made, and a lot of times, at that amount of money, $10 a pound, I could spend, say, $170,000 of my own money and buy 17,000 pounds of shit and put it on one of my buddy's old rickety ass nasty boats up in Naples and put it adrift about 6-7 miles off of shore, and then have somebody, have one of the guys call on it at a certain time. And while they're out there going, score, and everybody's swarming onto this boat, I can move in 60,000 pounds into Everglades down here. $170,000 isn't even a night at a club in Miami, I don't care. Let them have it. Let them score. They're pat themselves on the back all they want to, but
Right. So I know Leo has another show tonight, so we probably should wrap this up so he can get going on it.
Absolutely.
But Leo,
my apologies if I get
no.
I enjoyed it.
This has been a great.
I gotta read the book now.
Yeah, this has been a great show. And there's much more that people can find out about you by picking up the book. And the book is Leo.
Yeah, you can find everything in the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And for me, just Google Leo Pond. You'll find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not going to say which is which, but I run a little thing called the Dorkening Podcast Network. We got a ton of awesome shows on our network, a lot of awesome people doing a lot of awesome stuff. Head on over to thedorkening.com, which you can find all the latest episodes of all the shows on the network right there. And Tim, where do you like people interacting with you on social media?
I like them to check me out at Original Saltwater Cowboy on Instagram. And if they would like to, I'm the second editions of my book are have just now come out. Amazon has them now. Feel free to do that. But I'm going to be putting up a link very soon on my, to my email through my Instagram. So that's at Original Saltwater Cowboy Instagram.
Awesome. Jeffrey.
Excellent. Wow. Unbelievable stories. I loved it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Anything.
Awesome meeting you, dude.
Fucking nothing. Oh,
sitting
totally.
All gummied out.
So, as for me, just go to stilltoking.com. You'll find out everything you need to know about us. Talking with the Dead on Facebook.
Okay, Benjamin.
I've got to get more guests like this because, man, he didn't say a fucking word all night at all. People are going to be listening to the podcast.
I was enthralled with the story.
Where's the host? Where's that guy, Jeff? He usually has a smart-ass comment for somebody. He hasn't said a word.
Benjamin, my man, there is so much more. So much more.
There is. And, I would love to get you on again at another date. You know,
there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it's
future.
not in the book. There's just
Right.
there's too much to tell to be able to write in the book, man. I mean, there's some funny shit.
There you go, Leo. We've got like what 15 shows now on the network to do interviews.
Oh yeah.
We'll have to do a Tim McBride marathon.
You know, I did a thing in Canada for 2 years whereby I had a segment that I did once a week every at 4:20 every Thursday. For 2 years, once a week, I never repeated the same story.
Dude.
Wow.
We're gonna talk on the phone tomorrow.
Cool.
Because we have a radio station and we were looking for content for the fucking 420, weren't we, Leo?
Well, you were.
All right, look at that.
Cool.
So yeah.
Awesome. Jeff, Leo, it's been a pleasure meeting you guys.
It's been amazing.
You, sir.
You know, I see good things coming in the future from this. But to all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do every week. So people like us can do what we do. Stay safe. We're out of here. We'll see you next week.
Catch you later.
Bye.